My journey to the GFR mission was a long and sordid path, Kimberly. And that's what I want your listeners to know. It's not linear. Don't worry if it's messy. If you are a mission driven entrepreneur, purpose driven, wanting to help people change the world, it's going to not be a straight shot.
Struggle to get your own marketing in place to draw in the right community for you and your business? Have a big goal or dream to change the world with your services, but can't seem to connect with the right people? Every month in Marketing and Growth Mastery, we have live trainings, hot seat coaching, and check ins to keep you on track with creating the right marketing with the right message for your community. Take it for a test run of only $1 for 30 days with the code podcast. Join at theaudienceconverter.com/mastery. See you inside.
Welcome to the Audience Converter Podcast, the podcast for converting your audience from strangers to loyal fans. We dive deep and discuss how entrepreneurs, consultants, and coaches can level up their business to help more people in the world. Now here's your host, the creator of the Audience Conversion Method, Kimberly Weitkamp.
Welcome back to the Audience Converter Podcast. This episode is so incredibly valuable. If you've ever felt alone while being an entrepreneur, if you've wondered if you can really actually pursue your passion and make a business out of it, even if you're kind of wondering, like, what kinds of questions should I really be asking myself to make sure I'm building the business that is best for me? I'm so excited. My guest today is Lisa Cherney. We had an amazing conversation. We covered all of those things, especially in the forms of talking about her confession questions. She left a really successful business because she realized it wasn't fulfilling to her. And I've talked about this before, that being passionate and being really, super engaged with your audience and loving what you do is so important when building a business that you're going to make a huge part of your life, especially in the world of entrepreneurs. Like, we spend so much time in that business and getting it off the ground. And then even if we are able to step back or want to step back later, it's such a huge investment for us. So making sure that you're pursuing things for the right reasons, you're building the right communities. Lisa also has her own community, the GFR community, and there are a lot of really great, amazing people in there. So if you've ever wondered how to build that type of environment for people and to make sure that you are pursuing your passion and what kind of questions you want to be asking for that, this interview is so for you. I'm so excited for you to listen to it, and I would love to hear your feedback. Remember, you can always reach out at contact@theaudienceconverter.com. Let's listen into Lisa. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Audience Converter Podcast. I'm Kimberly Weitkamp, your host, conversion copywriter, and marketing strategist. And today I am so excited. We're going to be talking about something a lot of entrepreneurs kind of have questions about, but aren't really sure about how to do. And that is being completely true to yourself, not only in your business, but also in your marketing. And I have the queen of clarity herself to help me talk about this, Lisa Cherney. She is known as the Queen of Clarity and also host of the groundbreaking confession-based Get Effing Real show for successful, soulful entrepreneurs and founder of the GFR Squad, a lively community serious about embracing the GFR lifestyle and living a life without regrets. In 2014, after 15 years in business, Lisa got real and dismantled her successful 7-figure business as the juicy marketing expert. She was proud of the financial accomplishment, but burdened by the monster she created. It didn't make her happy. And she learned because something is successful and people like it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. She's my kind of person. She says she's a self-proclaimed lazy person, but a lover of TV. And she doesn't have a marketing degree and MBA. She's not a certified coach, but she mentors lots of those people who are and who do and doesn't hold it against them. So I'm so excited to welcome Lisa to the show and talk about how to be yourself in your marketing and your business. Lisa, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. You have such a great voice, girl. You need to do like some more voiceovers or something. I loved my intro in your voice.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. That's wonderful to hear. Awesome. So Lisa, I'm so excited to have you here and to, just dive right on in. Tell me though, 15 years in business, growing to 6 figures, and then you completely tore it down. Tell me about your journey to doing what you're doing right now.
My journey to the GFR mission was a long and sordid path, Kimberly. And that's what I want your listeners to know. It's not linear. Don't worry if it's messy. If you are a mission-driven entrepreneur, purpose-driven, wanting to help people change the world, it's going to not be a straight shot. So I have actually been an entrepreneur for 20 years. And when I first started, my business was called consciousmarketing.com. And it was really revolutionary at the time, where I talked about, your marketing needs to come from the inside out. And I talked about how you need to be yourself to attract what you want. This was before The Secret was out and before people were talking about, everything like that. And, all the way to now, I've kind of come full circle because I'm focused on where we are as mission driven entrepreneurs getting in our own way. And to me, that's the most important, not some of the marketing, strategies and tactics and things that we think are why we're not getting our clients, but often it's just our own, internal process or stories we're telling us or things we've decided that are not longer true and no longer serving that really need to be set aside.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I do believe that one of the biggest attractors for a lot of us is that inner voice, that inner critic. And that inner critic and inner voice is, it's informed by a lot of other things that aren't us. And too many people focus on the tactics before focusing on exactly, what is their reason? Why are they doing what they're doing?
Totally true. Absolutely.
So you have, as you said, right, you were the founder of Conscious Marketing before that was a thing. But, you've got these things called the GFR commandments, which is all about how to build the business that you really want and also building the life around it. And I love number 3, which is, don't worry about being normal, proper, or polite, which is somebody who was born and raised in the Midwest. Being able to say it doesn't matter about not being polite, I want to learn more about that. So can you tell me a little bit about number 3 and what that really means?
I would love to. And just a little background, more background on the GFR commandments. 2 years ago, when I was like, okay, Lisa Cherney, what is the next expression of your mission in the world? And I was doing some like soul searching around how have I helped people? What are the things that people come to me about? And I realized that there was like 12 problems, 12 ways that an entrepreneur would be getting in their way that would actually prevent them from doing the marketing things, the sales strategies, the digital marketing things, all the things that they had been learning about, they weren't doing. And when they would come to me, I just couldn't just push them into doing those things and kind of like, get over it, kind of thing. It was like, okay, what's coming up for you? And I discovered, Kimberly, that there's actually 12 things that were coming up for them that I would say over and over and over again. And those became the 12 GFR commandments. And each commandment has a question because, I'm a trainer and a coach in my true nature. And the questions really are where the inquiry comes from. So I'm excited to talk about number 3. It is super juicy to talk about not worrying about being polite. So the commandment again is don't worry about being normal, proper, polite. And then there's a question that goes with it. I call them confession questions because that's fun. And it says, where am I not speaking my truth? Where am I not speaking my truth? So I believe in all my years of mentoring people from a marketing standpoint and then just helping them to build their business and get over themselves, that so many times they would be holding back their true expression of their passion and their fire, that fire in their belly, because they were so worried about what people would think. They were worried about not saying it right. They were going to turn somebody off, being too gritty or being too in their face. They were worried about, being proper and, trying to appeal to everybody. And in the end, they really weren't attracting the people they wanted to attract because they weren't being authentic in their marketing.
So many great things in that little tidbit about, first off, I love that you call them confession questions and that you went and, kind of sat down and looked through all the different conversations you were having with these entrepreneurs and saying, what is the similarities? Where do these people keep running into the same problems? Because so many of us, we feel that we're all alone, right? We're the only ones who are experiencing XYZ, whatever that is. And so that you took the time and sat down and laid out those commandments and then put them into the form of a question so that people could kind of identify that. That's really powerful. And, when you're talking about holding back your passion and by doing so, not attracting the right people, can you dive into that a little bit more?
Sure. I mentioned the soapbox idea, and I think that really helps people get what I'm talking about. So imagine yourself speaking passionately about the thing that you're wanting to help people with in the world. You're at a dinner party and maybe if you drink, maybe you had a couple drinks and you're feeling a little bit more relaxed, and you get someone that really wants to know. And all of a sudden you just could feel yourself like using hand movements and speaking enthusiastically, and you're super excited that this person wants to know. And it's that fire in your belly that where you're not editing yourself and you're just talking passionately about the thing that you feel like you're kind of, we're put here to really help people with. And so much of the time, Kimberly, that passion does not get translated into our marketing, our Facebook lives, our, other social media posts, our emails, our website. It doesn't get translated. And that watering down is really us creating some resistance between us and the people that we want to help.
Absolutely. And I liked that you mentioned like all of those different methods, right? There's so many different ways that you can be marketing yourself. Some of them are in person, right? When you're at that dinner party and you're waving your hands and you're showing your passion. But, you want to be having that same kind of conversation with people, even if the conversation seems to be one way, right? Social media, we put that out there. Maybe people comment, maybe people don't. But emails, right? We want them to invite them into the conversation. So they want to be reading your messages, and it needs to be a reflection of who you are.
Absolutely. And that's not always easy, right? People say to me, well, how do I do that? How do I be more of myself? How do I find more authentic marketing voice? And I have like one question that I often share that seems to help people. Should I share that?
Yes, I love questions. Questions prompt lots of good thoughts.
Okay, cool. So there's the where am I not speaking my truth. I love that question. That's the one that goes with the commandment. And it's a great sort of macro question to ask about life and business, marketing. But here's something specific to marketing, a question you can ask. If you could say anything in your marketing without any backlash or worrying about turning anyone off, what would you say? And just do some writing. And if you're not a writer, record yourself answering that question. Like, all right, you have a complete free range, don't hold back. Don't, no, you're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to turn anyone off. Just tell us like it is. What is it that you want us to know? And just let her rip. And it is illuminating when my clients do this. It is so fascinating. I've had clients share things like, oh, I was bullied in high school and I never want anyone to experience that. And I was like, oh, and like they never said anything like that before. It's fascinating what we will share when we're actually just given permission to do so.
That is so true. And it's one of the things I know I've come across with my clients where like they're afraid to share their own story because they're like, well, people aren't going to like me then. And the thing is that we buy from people we know, like, and trust, right? Especially online, especially with so much noise out there nowadays. You have to make that connection with people. And that's what brings them in. And that's what keeps them with you and in your community. So, we all want and love sharing stories. So why wouldn't you want to share your own?
Absolutely. And building on the know, like, and trust factor that we, have heard about in the past, I would say people buy from people that have been through something, that have struggled, that have some grit, that learned the hard way. That's who I want to buy from. I actually don't trust anyone when I don't feel any kind of vulnerability from them. And I think now more than ever before, this is what people are craving.
Definitely. People are looking for a little bit of guidance, but they're also looking to see, and that's one of the reasons I ask the question at the beginning is, how did you get to doing what you're doing? Because we want to know that there was a path, there was a journey. And I loved what you said about how, life is messy. It's not linear. And when you're building up your business, then, it's not going to be the straight line to success that everyone kind of puts out there, because it is an up and down kind of topsy-turvy world. And, where's the fun in living in something that's a completely straight line? Journeys are all about the places and the amazing things you see on the way, right?
It is. And we still judge ourselves, though, when we want to, take a hard right after we've been on a certain path in business. We create a story that, well, people are going to feel like I'm flaky, or they're, I need to stick with my brand, or, no one's going to be able to find me, or I invested in that brand or that website. And, it's hard for me to let go of that URL that, someone that I was studying with that paid a lot of money told me was really going to be really good. But here's the thing. we evolve as our mission evolves, and our mission evolves as we evolve. They are so closely tied together that they are actually inseparable. And so you may as well just surrender. And that's what my GFR podcast is all about, is sharing people's stories, the grit, the struggle, and how purposeful it was, so that when you listen to my show, you're like, oh, okay, so that means that if things feel really crappy right now, that they're actually, this could actually have a purpose or a plan.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I recently just did one of those pivots, right, where I chose to focus on a completely new audience, and I was really reluctant. I was like, how's this going to work? I've got a list already. I've spent so long building it. I'm not sure about it. And then, once committing to it, once really realizing this is where my new passion lied and where I really wanted to be in, things started moving quite quickly, and I've gained more momentum in like 3 months than I had in 3 years with the other one.
Oh, I love that story. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, for sure. And then, of course, all of this craziness happened. So all of the momentum kind of went out the window. But that's another story.
Well, and that's where you stop. That's one of the GFR commandments, is know that sometimes stopping is the most lucrative action to take. And the confession question is, where do I need to pause or stop, but haven't because of fear? So it's like, okay, it's just another invitation to stop and say, okay, is there another iteration here? Is there a something else that's bubbling up for me? Not that you're abandoning the old thing. It might be, maybe it is, but it could also be, something that was adjacent to it. It just, and that doesn't stop. Like everybody on the globe is also and being invited to stop. So it makes it, it's nice to have company, but I believe that that's always there. We're always being invited to stop and pause sometimes and reassess and shift.
I like that invitation to stop, because so many of us are looking for that invitation to start. And many of us don't think about the invitation to stop and reassess and decide, is this still what I want to be doing? I like that phrasing.
And, the commandment, know that sometimes stopping is the most lucrative action to take, is on the list, because it is freaking hard to do. And it's completely counterintuitive. And you can create a really strong story that my business is going to, go down the tubes, and I'm going to lose money and I'm going to lose clients. And, you can create a whole story around it, but you can also create a story to support the stopping. Well, now I'm really going to make sure I'm going in the right direction. And, I'm going to make sure I'm working with clients that I love. And you know what, maybe I need to rest. And when I come back, I'm going to feel rejuvenated, and that's going to be super lucrative. And there's if we stop long enough to look at the story, we can create a new one. And that's, I think, inherent in commandment number 8.
Commandment number 8. Did we cover that one? Or is that the one about me?
I slipped it in there. Commandment number 8 is know that sometimes stopping is the most lucrative action to take.
Gotcha. I was like, number 8. I thought, I was like, which number was it? I don't recall. Because there's 12 commandments and they're all really great.
I know. And that's when I talk, it's just inevitable that I bring up 3 or 4, because it's just so relevant. And so they're just so what's there for me to say. So I don't have to force it very much.
There you go. Fantastic. So, if people are, we talked about how to make sure you are being truly yourself and not worrying about being normal or polite. And we got some questions to ask about, how to see if those are showing up in our marketing. Is there a way to see if, we have suddenly started being more authentic, or if we are seeing that change from where we were to where we want to be?
I would say that the best indication is how you feel. Are you having more fun with the people that are showing up? Are you feeling more flow? How are you feeling on Sunday night when it's time to, start working the next day? Are you feeling like you're hearing from the people that are around you the things that you've always wanted to hear in terms of feedback on the impact that you're making on them? It's just so much of a feeling, Kimberly, and often we're not so attuned to how things feel until they feel bad, really, really, really bad. But let's look at what feels good. And of course, that's another GFR commandment of let go of what doesn't feel good. And I think that is the best indication that you've turned a corner, that you are being more real and authentic, is I believe that you're going to feel more yummy, and you're going to get feedback that says that you're on the right track.
Definitely. I love that. It's more than just marketing that we're talking about here, because we're talking about how you feel about your business, how your business is working for you and in your life, and not just you working in the business. And what you said there with the question, and which commandment is that one?
So number 2 is let go of what doesn't feel good. And the question for that one is what doesn't feel good? It's pretty basic, but pretty profound.
What doesn't feel good? I like that. And I think it's something that we can, go back to throughout our time working in our business, because so often when you see a tactic or you see a marketing strategy or you see a thing about building your business, so many people think it's a one and done deal. And what I like about the commandments is that they kind of point out that things can change, things can evolve. I'm pretty sure that is one of the commandments, actually. And, things can change, things can evolve. And you always want to be looking and kind of evaluating to make sure that you're still being you, you're still being yourself, you're still being authentic, and you're still, getting joy from what you do.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the way that you characterize them as sort of a confirmation that things evolve. And of course they're from my own evolution, which, right. And so of course that's what I'm sharing and what I'm putting out there. And then I get to help people with the same. And I think that so many of the people that we're trying to help are also using their own life experience, and there was always an initial thing that happened to them or inspired them, but it doesn't just stop there. It does keep evolving.
Definitely. And I think people's life experience does obviously play into their business, but it doesn't have to be necessarily like one of those world ending type things, right? That was one of the struggles I know I had when I first started in business was, but I'm so young. I haven't worked 20 plus years in corporate and learned all the horrible things before figuring out that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, it is whatever your particular journey has been, has value and has something interesting that others want to hear about.
Absolutely. And you remind me of myself a lot because I left corporate at 28 and I had a good number of years because I had started when I was in my undergrad in a corporate experience, but I still was super young. And it's like, who is this chick that's, telling me to be conscious in my marketing, kind of thing. It's like, I didn't on the external judgment scale, I didn't have the chops yet, but I knew what I knew. And I feel like that's who you are too. It's like, you know what you know, and you have had significant experience enough to help people that are in their 60s. It's like wherever we are and how we can articulate what we've learned, there are people who need it, which is one of the commandments.
Yes, I never did have the corporate quote unquote experience, if you will. I went straight to being a nomad after college.
Which is a credential in and of itself, right?
Absolutely.
That I'm really curious about. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was in university and then the Great Recession hit. So my job prospects were, I could go work at a family video rental store. So I decided to move to Spain and teach English.
Awesome. I love it.
And from there kind of got into the travel writing and marketing world, which is a bit of my journey, which if anyone is interested, you can go and hear in episode 1 of the Audience Converter podcast. So I love all of the different things that we've talked about. We've covered quite a few of the different commandments. We talked about how important it is to not only be yourself, but acknowledge that who you are is why people are interested in what you're doing and working with you, because you have your own unique perspective and everyone has their own unique perspective. And if you're so worried about being polite, then you're kind of detracting from who you are from yourself. And people kind of may not recognize you when they meet you in person based on your marketing, and a bunch of different ways that people can look through and find out if they're not being true and authentic to themselves in their marketing. So, we're nearing the end of our time, but this has been such a great and valuable conversation. But if people, after they listen to this, after they realize the importance of being themselves, what is the one action item you want people to take?
The one action item would be, if any of this resonates and you're curious about the other commandments, is to go grab your copy. And then when you do, I will also train you on just a 2-minute process about how you can really zero in using those confession questions to what is the thing possibly that is the thing that is holding you back right now. It's a way for you to just GFR with yourself and get to those confessions and admissions that actually might really open up the floodgates for you. So to grab your copy of the 12 GFR commandments, go to gfr.life, LIFE/12C. So the number 12, 1, 2, and the letter C as in commandment.
Awesome. Be sure to go and grab the 12 commandments, the 12 GFR commandments. It's all about how you can make sure to be building the business, the life, and the marketing, of course, for your business and how you want to show up in the world. And it's really valuable. It's one of those things where it's simple, but it's got some really powerful aspects to it because it's got all those really great questions, right? You call them confession questions, right?
Yes, they're really juicy.
Yes, the really juicy confession questions. And I would add, take the time to ask yourselves those questions and get your answers out. And, Lisa mentioned a really great way, right? You don't necessarily have to write it out. You can just kind of open the voice recording app on your phone and start talking. And that's a really great way for you to get an unfiltered answer to your questions to see if you are following the GFR commandments. So, Lisa, I want to say thank you again so much for being on the show. And if people want to learn more about you and what you do, what's the best way to get in touch?
Go to gfr.life is the main website. And of course, on Instagram, Facebook, all the great social places, and check out the show and be inspired by other people's stories so that you're not alone.
Fantastic. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a lonely road, and becoming a part of community is a great way to join with others and travel that journey together. So, Lisa, thank you again so much for being on the show, and I'm excited to get this out there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Audience Converter podcast. For more information and important links about today's show or for access to our website, visit theaudienceconverter.com. Take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.